Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Building a Leadership Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki C. Super excited to be here with you today, all the way from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We have another amazing guest hitting our Bomb Global stage here. We are super excited again for our sponsors. Thank you so much to Carolyn Bob Green, who is the CEO, founder, and visionary of Training You to Succeed and the Passionpreneurs. You definitely want to check them out on Facebook. Thank you so much for your consistent just journey with us here at Bomb Global. Thank you to Top Fox, who is our lead sponsor for our Taking Off the Shades anthology, providing the amazing fashionable shades that we have all of our authors photographed with on the back cover of our book, and for sponsoring that. Also, thank you to Julia Noah with Breathe Capital Planning, and of course, our Ladies of Leadership. I have an amazing guest. Thank you so much for referrals, joining this networking community and just being able to connect with amazing individuals. I had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit about Karen Laos. She is with us here today, and I am looking forward to get to know her just a bit more as we start our journey into 2026. Karen Laos is a communications expert and confidence cultivator. And she is on mission to silence self-doubt in 10 million women by giving them simple strategies to speak up and stand out in the boardroom and beyond. Karen first recognized the power of confidence communication when she successfully negotiated her first flea market purchase at 6 years old. Wow. She now guides women to transform self-doubt into self-confidence, resulting in more clients, jobs, promotions, and negotiation wins. Karen has commanded stages at Google, Sephora, NASA, is a TEDx speaker, coach, and author on Trust Your Own Voice. She holds a podcast in the top 3% globally, which is what we're all about here. Ignite your confidence, and created her signature framework that she loves to call the Confidence Cocktail. Without further ado, let's get her on here. Welcome, Karen. How are you?
Hello. So excited for our conversation.
Hello. Yes, I am super excited because we didn't know how much we had so much in common. And it took one of our connected friends to say, hey, you ladies need to get to know each other. And I am so glad that we answered the call and we're here and bringing your journey on our podcast. So welcome first to the Bomb Global family. So let's talk about Karen Laos. First of all, where are you tuning in from?
I am in San Francisco.
Yes. You are 3 years behind us. So you're in the past. We're in the future already, right?
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about your journey, kind of, at 6 years old, you negotiated what, and how did that really expand your mindset on building what you have today?
It was really funny when I think back, because my dad gave me a few dollars at this flea market and he said, go have fun, but never pay full price. I mean, he was just like, never do this. And I don't know if it was more the fear of me wanting to please my dad or what, but it was the freedom to be able to have a little money, walk around. And of course, I realized, oh my gosh, this is exhilarating that you can actually ask for something to be less price than is on the thing. So it was a huge insight for me. But what that did for me as a kid and really helped me as a skill later in life was being comfortable asking for what I need and what I want. And specifically, my dad used to say throughout the course of my life and childhood, it was the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You don't have if you don't ask. So lots of reinforcement around that. But I also want to say that I had a mom who was my parents' relationship was more of the traditional family relationship, probably back in the day when I was raised. But my mom wasn't allowed by my dad, and you can already hear that language, like wasn't allowed by, which drove me crazy as a kid. Like, why? What? You're aren't you peers? And so what I learned through their modeling of marriage was that one person controls the other. And I will say that that was obviously not a good modeling, and I determined as a kid, like, I'm never gonna let somebody control me, but at the same time, the training was you don't have a voice. You have to look to an authority figure who is usually a man to tell you what to do or to make decisions for you. So it was a confusing childhood from the perspective of the ask for what you want, but then, well, but don't ask too much because you don't want to come across as too much because you don't really have a voice. So that was a big part of my upbringing, which led me to, and I'll just share one more thing here, Nikki. I know I'm jumping in and saying a lot of context, but which led me to being in the boardroom as an executive, and I couldn't get the words out. And my boss shut down the meeting, pulled me aside, and she said, "You didn't trust your gut." And I was so embarrassed. And I thought, why do I keep asking for permission? And that's really the moment that I realized I have to figure out what the root of my problem is. Why do I have this challenge of not speaking up in important moments when I am commanding stages at all these big companies, but still had that feeling of insecurity around certain people? So that my boss was the president of the company, and it was challenging with her because later I found out through lots of personal growth work and therapy was that she was really the archetype of my dad. So I felt quite intimidated by her. So that's a little bit of my origin story, which led me to want to help more women ask for what they want and speak up.
Wow, what a beautiful story. We don't have any limits on context and getting us to the information because all of that is important, right? The process of how our journey began, and they're different moments in life, right? Not just one
Mhm.
full experience defines our current story. There are many, multiple of them. And with life, we're growing all the time, year in, year out. We are building that growth. So, talk a little bit about that journey on really finding the confidence to be able to now speak up um, after. I'm not sure what happened there. To now speak up after you were able to face that fear.
Boy, well, I went through a lot of personal growth work to do it for sure. Now, what I found that is interesting, and I continue to learn this about the women that I work with as well, is that we're multifaceted. So there might be certain situations where we are doing great. Like one of my clients is in her 50s, and she said, I feel like an 8-year-old in front of my boss. So really getting to that point of, okay, how can I work through that then? And things like self-doubt exercises, for example. So I love an exercise called the fear script, where it is, and this helped me a lot, where I have an actual dialogue with fear. So for anybody listening that wants to try this, and you just jot down, you put like a literal script. So you jot down, what would fear say to you? So maybe fear says, well, you're not good enough to do this, or who are you to be speaking up? And then it's so fascinating that when you respond back as the highest version of yourself, it's amazing how things just generally come very quickly. I've never met anybody that said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea what to say." I think we all have that highest version of ourselves within us, but a lot of times we don't activate her. And so really being able to activate that, jot down, well, what might be some things that I could say back to that of, and even thinking about what I call a celebration portfolio, which is really collecting data about yourself. So it's ultimately making a list of 2 items. One is, what are the accomplishments that you've had that show data and evidence to the fact that you're not an imposter in that situation. You deserve to be there because you have shown all of these things. So that can help with your doubt, as well as your character qualities. Like, what are the reasons why people love being around you? So maybe it's you're a particularly positive person, like you, Nikki. You have such amazing energy. So it's that, oh, I have this great energy that is contagious for other people. So those are a couple of exercises that helped me, that I've found also help others to, and doing that incrementally over time, where you're consistently feeding yourself good things, feeding life to yourself, the positive affirmations, and then taking action on the speaking up piece. Because I'll say one other thing that I found really helpful. So my boss used to say, you always come to meetings, Karen, and you say, what do you all think? And one day she said, I want to know what you think. And my jaw kind of dropped, like, and then I realized I was not used to saying what I thought, because I had a fear around not saying the right thing, because then I thought that my boss might not approve of me. But what I started doing, and what I teach others to do too, is to say, here's my vote. And that phrase, here's my vote, is very direct, but it's also diplomatic. So that can be a way to start dipping your toe in the water of speaking up in certain situations.
I love that. And that's so simple, right? We take these simple statements, sentences that can really help us on our journey, which is the communication, right? Finding that confidence. I love that. And you talked about that imposter syndrome, right? What have you found just working with the women that you have worked? Like, what is the biggest root of the imposter syndrome? Like, what are some things that you are finding that are coming, that those places, what are those places um stem from?
A lot of it is our cultural conditioning, for sure, of this idea that we have to look to somebody else to give us permission, or that other people are smarter and better than us. So I'd say the majority of it is the cultural conditioning that we've had, that sadly continues to get reinforced in certain situations, just being a woman in life. And so what we want to do is make sure that we take care of our own internal structure. And what I mean by that is really taking care of the self-regulation that we need to with our nervous system. So as simple as things as, I need to breathe more, or I need to pause occasionally when I speak, and being more mindful of that. And then the more we can talk about this, but not have it overpower us. So, on one hand, at least just addressing it. Like I always talk about with your inner critic, that it's fun to name them. So, mine is Gertrude, and she has this long gray hair with these little wire framed glasses, and she's got a clipboard, and she's always judging me. So what I try to do, and it just kind of makes it fun, and it also names it to reduce the power of that, to say, Gertrude, I know you're just trying to keep me safe, but I've got this. We're safe. So sometimes even saying, I'm safe here. I'm able to keep myself safe. These little micro moments that we want to have as strategies to go to, especially in situations where we might feel particularly nervous. So, like me in the boardroom, or that story from before, or it could be, you're walking into a meeting with a new person, or you're starting a new job, or starting a business. I mean, there's so many different things that we walk into, that we've got to make sure that we take care of ourselves in advance. So things like affirmations, I find really helpful as well. I think everybody's got to find the thing that works best for them, but it's being aware of it first, naming it, and then being able to address it and say, I've got this. We're okay.
Yes, 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 yes. I call it the inner hater, right? Someone had corrected
Mm,
me about saying that word, right? but her name is, hey girl, today's not the day. Now is not the time. I have things to get done. And you can join me, but no negativity here. Like I talk to her all the time when those fears start to set in, because as professionals, we're getting to many layers of success, many layers of action taking, many layers of checking off that goal list. And with each level brings a new set of fears, a new set of distractions. You're like, oh my God. Sometimes the question is like, my biggest question that I asked one time on doing the tour that I'm doing was, am I in over my head?
Mm.
That was just a true sign of doubt, right? It doesn't seem like it is, but just something as simple as that, of asking yourself, are you in over your head? No, you're never not. You're dreamers, you're doers. There's things that can be done. Tell us a little bit, like if I was that client of yours and I said that statement, how can you help me with that?
And can you repeat the statement, Nikki? The which?
I asked myself if I'm in over my head about an idea that I was trying to create.
Thank you. Well, first that I would ask is, what causes you to have that belief? And dive into that a little bit more, because for my role with my clients is to guide by asking questions that help facilitate their process. So that would be the first thing is, yeah, what causes you to believe that? And perhaps asking, what evidence do you have that that is true? And another question I would ask is, what if you believed that you were doing the exact thing that was perfectly meant for you in that moment? And these are all just a kind of a menu of options. But to me, my thought is, why not dream big? And the sky's the limit. Like in my world, anything is possible. So I come from that perspective. So if somebody says I'm in over my head, I might just ask more questions to probe. So is this a problem of them believing that they're not enough or that they can't dream that big? Or is it a logistical problem where they have way too many things on their plate? And then it becomes, we need to figure out how to prioritize then. And if this is a big dream, then let's make room for it if that's really a passion of yours. So I'd say that it's multifaceted how I would approach that with coaching someone.
Yeah. Yeah, very intentionally is why I say that, because I want our audience to understand what they should be asking themselves. The evidence was there, right? This is something that started in 2023 after I launched my first book. I had already started doing virtual events. I had launched my live event, launching Bomb Global. And then I wanted to take it on tour because it was a God-given download. And
Mm.
I'm putting this all in place, looking for dates, looking for all these things. And I'm like, I had to pause for a second and go back and reflect and kind of journal and put those things together. But I love that you also bring in that second aspect, right? Because first of all, we think that, maybe it's that imposter syndrome, but then it could be a logistical problem. Do I have the time to do it? What do I need to put in place? What kind of organization skills I need to implement, right? So I love that. That's the same perspective I would take. Like those are the probing questions that we need to ask ourselves, and some of us are not taking the time to do that. So what would you suggest to those that have this nudge to do something, build something, create something, take an action, whether it's a difficult conversation, because it doesn't have to be business, right? It can be
Right.
an everyday situation. um, how should people be really setting themselves up for success instead of worrying about what cannot happen? Let's talk about
Mhm.
that, Karen.
Absolutely. Well, and this is such a good example of, what is that quote, where your attention goes, energy flows, or where energy flows, attention goes. And
Mhm.
to some version of that is what I really believe, because this is why, if you look at the research around gratitude, how it's really like the highest frequency level related to connections to resilience and happiness and fulfillment. So it's really the same idea that I would suggest, that we're focusing on the things that we want to happen in the positive way, because the things like worry and fear, that just holds us back. Now, I do think that it's important to acknowledge that when you have a recurring fear, that you name it and address it and grieve it. And when I say grieve, what I mean by that is you could simply talk with somebody about what's bothering you. You might journal that this is on your mind, but some way to express that out of your body, because it's not just your brain. We're so connected, and making sure that we are clearly addressing that, but that our focus is on the thing that we're moving toward. Because I think too often I think about this Winnie the Pooh clip where Pooh and Piglet are walking along a blustery day. And so the wind is like blowing their ears back, and little Piglet is like, oh my gosh, like the sky is falling. What if this happens? What if that happens? And he's totally catastrophizing. And then Pooh, in his calm nature, just says, what if it doesn't? So it's almost like we have to be our own Piglet and Winnie the Pooh inside. We have to be our own Pooh to Winnie the Pooh. Let me specify that. And really help that the worrier inside of us, or the one that fears. But we have to be really intentional about where we put our energy, because if we're putting our energy to the negative, that's what sadly often happens, because we are very powerful human beings, especially when you think about all the research around neuroscience now, that's even more and more is coming out about just the fact that we are so much more in control of what transpires than we think. And I know I could go on and on about this, but I've had people in my life say, things just tend to happen for you. Things just, like, good things happen. And I say, well, I expect that. I often wake up, I don't do this every day, but I often in the morning say, I can't wait to see what amazing thing is going to happen today. So I'm already projecting the positive. So I cannot underestimate how powerful our brains are to project the cool things that are going to happen. And that's why I love vision boards and prayer, and just the whole acting as if something's already happened. There's so much that I could say about this, Nikki, so I'm going to stop. But what's landing for you as I talk about it?
That's awesome. So what would you say for someone who's in that all amazing things? What would you say the time lapse of what is the average time lapse when someone's kind of in that mindset of, imposter syndrome or whatever type of um, situation, and how quick should we snap out of it?
Mm, that is so personal. And so first I want to say that I don't know. The language of snap out of it feels like, is that the is I don't know. It's This is actually very interesting to think about, because I really think of myself, and for myself, as a nurturing, like I want everybody to think about nurturing yourself, giving yourself grace and love and care and kindness. So that's a tough one, because I do think that it's important. I think it's an individual journey to determine at what point do you feel like, okay, I've acknowledged this, I've taken some time, and now is it time to just leap and give it a try? So, one thing, this might sound a little bit unusual compared to what we've been talking about, but one of the things that builds confidence is recording yourself on video, or at least audio, and then listening to it back to see how we're coming across. And I know that that freaks a lot of people out, of, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear myself, or I don't want to listen. But the more that we can align what's real with, and then also realizing, oh my gosh, because most of the time, what I find with my clients when we do video and play it back, people say it's not as bad as I thought, because I think we all think the worst. And I'd say, just to go back to your specific question, it really is individual. So for some people, it could even be, hey, I say this affirmation and I snap out of it. Or for some people, it could be, wow, this is a journey that I have been dealing with forever. And I might have glimpses of moments where I can take action and I feel pretty good, but then I go back. I think the thing is to continually be intentional about working on it, and also having someone that's a coach or a friend that you can talk to about these things to help you continue to be supported in moving forward. That's what I'd suggest.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah, maybe snap out of it is not the term we want to think when we're grieving, when we're going through something. Like, you can't just do it. You can't flip a switch. So again, another intentional way, because sometimes that's what people tell us, is to snap out of it, and that's not a realistic approach. We have to deal with it and be in it and embrace it and be able to again link up with individuals that can support us on the journey, right? Some that may have been there, some that have the tools. When we have a problem, we're looking for solutions, right? And they're out there. I love that you mentioned coaching. How important was coaching for you, building what you've built as well? Have you invested in that personal development for you to be able to reciprocate this back to someone who is going through the same thing?
Absolutely. I've been investing in coaches since the mid 90s. So, right after college, I hired my first coach, and I tell you, it is invaluable. It also was very challenging in a good way. A coach challenged me when I was first starting. My first coaching business was on career coaching in 2003. And I remember this coach that I was considering asked me, she asked me, hey, would you want to start working with me? And I said, I'd love to. And then when she told me her rate was $500 a month at the time, that was a lot for me. And I said, oh gosh, I don't know that I can afford that. And I remember so clearly what she said back, which now I kind of laugh, because she said, Karen, that's what you're charging. She said, if you aren't willing to invest the same amount that people would be paying you to do, then you might need to think about that. Because, and it really hit me. Like, it's such a strong memory. And this is something I'd recommend for everybody to think about, of what value would a coach help you to get based on the things that you want? Like, what do you want to overcome? And sometimes what's hard about coaching is that sometimes it's hard to know what are the tangible outcomes of this. So, for example, when I'm working with people on confidence and overcoming self-doubt, my main process is around communication strategy. So let's help you figure out what to say in different situations. Where do you feel most uncomfortable? But sometimes it's not just a flip of a switch. And that's why I started, as I've continued to learn myself, is to help at the beginning. So let's say if Nikki, you and I were going to work together, I would give you my framework, the confidence cocktail, and I would ask you, of the 8 ingredients in that cocktail, where do you rate yourself now on a scale of 1 to 10? So just to keep it as simple as possible, everybody rates themselves on that scale, let's say related to confidence. And then we continue to map that over time of how are these milestones playing out.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Again, a simple framework that gets you closer to the result. And I love that you
Mhm.
said about the transformation piece, because we don't know what the outcomes are, right? Life's a risk that we have to take when we're investing in ourselves. So obviously doing your research and connecting with them and having that open dialogue at the very beginning is so important when you are connecting with people that can possibly take you to that next step. But I love that you have the confidence and communication fused together. And once you get the confidence to communicate, guess what? The results, not only you get those two things, and now you're able to articulate who you are, what you do, how you serve, and, specifically speaking to like entrepreneurs or even someone that's looking to build something.
Mm-hmm.
Love her response, your coach's response, like, okay, we want to charge this much, but we don't want to pay this much to get the tools that we need to be able to support this system right here. So that was gold. Like, you truly dropped gold right there, because a lot of entrepreneurs come into this space. I'm not going to say they're assuming, thinking, and this is probably what we've been taught: charge what you're worth. Well, how do we know
Mm-hmm.
what we're worth if we're not confident in it? So let's talk
Exactly.
about that.
Sure.
Thoughts on that.
Well, this goes back to getting feedback in my mind. Feedback first, what we talked about before of that celebration portfolio, to write down all of your accomplishments so you can see the hard and true facts of the value that you bring. The other thing I'd recommend is an exercise I call 5 and 5. It is to go to 5 people that you know and trust, ideally in different parts of your world, and ask them to give you 5 positive qualities about yourself. And you could even frame that as, what are the strengths that you see in me? And some version of that, to get some feedback around giving you more around helping you see for yourself from an external perspective, what is the value that other people see in me? I mean, I remember when I was starting, I launched back in my I shouldn't say relaunched, but I went back to corporate after the first time within a year. And then I left in 2020. And I remember really trying to dial in on what is my marketing message, what's my value proposition. And I asked a friend of mine, and it's funny, those moments when you can remember exactly where you were, and sitting there at my stove stirring something that I was cooking. And I said, Jeannie, what do you think what do you think sets me apart? Is it the communication piece? And whatever I said, she just said, Karen, you are a master speaker and facilitator. Why are you not bringing that up? And it's such a good example of, sometimes we don't see what our own brilliance is until we get feedback from others, because we're all walking around in our own skin all the time. So we don't really think that we're perhaps anything that unique or special, but we all are. And we all bring something to the table. And it would not have occurred to me to lead with that. And that's even why I'm more comfortable now. That was almost that turning point, to acknowledge and own the fact that I am a communication expert. Like, I am a master facilitator and public speaker. And that's what I'd encourage everybody to do, because it can be so helpful to get that external. And the cool thing is, if you ask 5 people, you'll see themes, most likely.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely taking on that challenge, Karen.
Woo!
Definitely taking on the challenge. Oh my God, there was so much good stuff there, and I had so much good things. But then I said, I'm taking on the challenge, and now I have to see how I'm going to take on the challenge. Like, who am I going to connect with? Because it's so important. Feedback is huge. We never, like, when someone tells us no, I don't. I tell my ladies, like in my coaching, when someone tells you no, ask them why. Like, you are
Mhm.
interviewing just as much as they are interviewing you. And
Yes.
it can be, it doesn't have to be anything negative. You just want to understand, hey, is this, you're going to get the data that you're looking for to see where the shift needs to happen.
Yeah.
Also, I am a walking testimony of something you said. I'm trying to think about, oh, yes, the feedback. So, after running my podcast for the first year, having one of my first guests reach out to me, I was about to attend his event that September, but we did like a connection call later. And he's like, oh my goodness, Nikki, like, I am seeing you do your thing. Congratulations. Like, that's a big deal. I don't really see a lot of people like sticking to what they say they're building.
Mhm.
And my response, my naive response, right, not knowing this, being, doing, definitely confident that, the energy and the vibe that I was putting out there. But my response was, I'm doing what I have to do. And he was like,
Mm.
Lord, he was like, wait a minute. I wasn't expecting that answer.
Yeah.
So that moment, he really had to tell me, like, Nikki, like, I need you to go back and look at what you've done in a year. Like, I've been watching it, but we
Oh,
do not know.
that's
So
beautiful.
it sat me down. It actually made me make a list of everything that I had accomplished. And when I looked at this laundry list, I was like, oh my goodness. Because I'm just on move mode, right? I'm like, I'm impacting lives,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
helping women. I'm over here celebrating their wins that I'm not even taking time to sit down and say, wow, you rocked it, you crushed it, right? And a
Oh.
lot of us are not doing that. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. Karen, this has been amazing so far. We're going to get to know you a little bit more. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and see what Karen's working on, what 2026 looks like, and how you connect with this amazing, amazing woman. We'll be right back.
She leads loud, purpose in her soul, lighting up the world, making broken places whole. She leads loud, echoes through the crowd, one voice, one mission, a movement unbound. Where you lead, live and love out loud. She leads loud, and she makes heaven proud.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm here with Karen. That is Bomb Global's second show. It's actually on Roku, YouTube, under Prospera TV network. Check them out. Thank you, Elena Rodriguez, who's also a partner, collaborator, sister. And she's amazing in what she does. And that's just another show that I've decided to bring the She Leads Loud movement, like getting the confidence and being able to communicate exactly the impact that you want in the world. So you can check that out. And Karen has been talking. She has been drizzling and pouring out just some amazing, simple concepts. And I don't want to say that they're simple because they're huge. They make a difference. So Karen, tell us a little bit about what your business is, what your program is, and what's your core mission for 2026. Well, we know that we're going to help 1 million women. So talk about that.
Sure. So in 2020, I set out on this mission to reach 10 million women by 2030. So we're roughly at about 4 million and counting right now. And this is going to culminate on the Chase Center stage in San Francisco in 2030 with a big event. And I am very excited about that and just officially got the event planner on in this last week. So a lot of exciting things. And the way that I do that, or the goal about reaching that amount of women, first of all, is that we all doubt ourselves. It happens. It's natural. My goal is to silence that voice of doubt and provide the communication strategies so that women always know what to say and how to say it. That they're not sitting in a meeting or frankly, even in a marriage or in a PTA or wherever you might find yourself in the world. I never want anybody to be stuck because they don't know what to say or what is bringing out the best version of themselves in their body language and in their voice. So I do a lot of training on presence, public speaking, as well as just simply how do you show up with your body language, voice, etc. And then also, how do you deal with content? How do you make sure that you aren't rambling? And I always tell people I'm a recovering rambler myself. So I taught myself this tip. When you notice yourself rambling, stop, pause, and say out loud, my point is this. It will help you calibrate. It will also help the audience realize, oh, she has a point if maybe you've drifted off. So very specific techniques to help people in their communication. And I work with people, most of the time I'm doing keynote speaking for women's conferences, but I also work with people individually. I have a handful of clients that I work with to help them for whatever situation they might find themselves to want to speak up and be heard.
I love that. And we're going on tour. We talked about it. California is a state that we are heading to, and I hope and have the privilege to have you on our stage.
I would
I,
love
I
that.
truly believe and feel since our first conversation, since our first text, since our first text message, just kind of sharing that synergy. I was like, oh my God, like this is the message that we all need here. We've heard it over and over again along our whole lives, but we are not catching it. A lot of us are missing it in different moments, right? So I am super excited about that. How can people get a hold of you? Like, where are you at? Where can we find you?
I'm at a few places. My website is KarenLaos.com, and that's spelled Laos. I also have a podcast called Ignite Your Confidence, and that is for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I have a book called Trust Your Own Voice, which is a guidebook for women on how to grow their influence through confident communication. And I'm also on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn pretty much every day. So feel free to find me in any of those places.
Yes, absolutely. Her website is scrolling along the bottom here. Write it down, type it in, connect with her. All of her other links will be in the show notes, but you have a gift for our audience as well.
Yes, I do. And that is called, well, let me put it this way. If you've ever used words that sort of minimize your credibility and maybe you don't realize it, things like, I just want to share a little tip with you, take away just a little and say, I want to share a tip with you. It totally changes the conversation. So I created a PDF guide, which is 9 words to avoid and what to say instead. So to help you with some of that language so you come across as more confident and credible.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to sink my hands into it and really take that, because sometimes we're not even conscious of the words. The words just flow out of our mouth. Can you tell us just a little bit about when you're in that situation? We talked a little bit about the rambling, but when you're in that situation, you just really don't know how to articulate it. What are some tips that women should do prior to either having a conversation, coming on a podcast, sharing their idea, putting it in their offer, which is everything that we do all day long?
Yes. The first thing, specifically thinking about the spoken word, I'll start with that. And then I can talk a little bit about the written word. But the spoken word, making sure, like we mentioned, record yourself on video or audio. Think about how you could record, even like, what would I say in 1 minute? Okay, let's say I get these, like, prepare. First of all, prepare. If you're going to get, let's say, 5 questions, or you anticipate 5, maybe not 5, but anticipate objections, anticipate the questions, and then practice. People underestimate the power of practicing and practicing out loud, actually saying the words, either with someone, a friend, a coach, or recording yourself on video. That is the number one thing that I would say. As a very specific strategy, pausing in the moment. Remember, the pause is your friend, and it will feel like a lifetime, but when you pause, but it usually isn't as long as we think it is in our heads, and it actually creates more control, credibility, and it helps people catch up to what we've said, because sometimes we end up talking too fast and not pausing. I also want to speak briefly to upspeak, the slang term for when people answer, or where they end a statement with a question mark. So let's imagine 2 examples. If I said this, hi, I'm Karen Laos, and I'm originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco, versus, hi, I'm Karen Laos. I'm originally from Minneapolis, and I now live in San Francisco. So the second one, all I'm doing is punctuating, but it sounds so much better because I've got that conviction in my voice. So a lot of times we don't
Mhm.
know that we're doing these question marks at the end. And the only way you can really know is if you get feedback from other people, because we usually can't hear it in the moment when we're doing it. So those are a couple of examples. And then with the written word, I would say make sure that whether you're writing an email or a pitch deck or anything, that you put the point right up front. Like, what is the point? Too often we tend to give all this context and we data dump, and people cannot even absorb, like, what is the point here? So making sure to have that point up front and be mindful of other filler words that get in the way, like, so, kinda, like, there's so many of them. So those are some tips that I would suggest.
All great tips. Again, gems just pouring on this podcast for sure. I love that you separated the written and the verbal, right? Because we communicate in all different types of ways. What about not the emails, but let's talk about the text messages or even, what are your thoughts on voice notes when you're communicating?
I love voice messages. I'm very prone to those as being the best mode for me. I'm also an external processor, but I will say be careful when you're leaving a voice note to say to give all this context and then say at the end, "Oh, here's why I messaged you." Start with that first. The reason I'm messaging you is, and this could be a great prompt that you use at the beginning of a sentence that you always keep in mind. The thing I'm emailing you about is this, or the thing I want to say is this. Sometimes we end up giving lots of detail. I was recently at an event and they gave everybody, it was about 50 people in the audience. So I was in the audience as a participant, and the facilitator said, if you're going to ask a question, these are the guidelines. You stand up and you say, "My question is," and then you say the question, because he said a lot of people get up and they just start telling us a lot of things. And it was such a good example of the reminder to stay focused.
Yes, I love the communication piece. I think that is the hugest um, when running a business, running through life, just the day to day, even opening a door for someone, the thank yous, the your welcomes, the questions of, how are you, and really really wanting to know how people are, right? Tone, all of those things matter. And we have to, when we're not seeing results, we have to go back to the basics, right? I
Exactly.
love what you're doing. What does 2026 look like for you?
Whew, 2026. I'm going to bring out my next book. It's going to all be about asking for what you want. So that's going to be published next year. Just a matter of when. So I'm not going to say timeline yet. But the first chapter is done. I'm working on the rest. So that's my big goal for 2026.
That's amazing. I am looking forward to it. So definitely on the side, definitely send me your link for the first book so we can get that on hand. Um, what do you want to leave our audience with today?
Trust yourself. You know more than you think.
Yes, I love
That's
that. I love
really,
that.
I
And I
mean,
do
that is
have
like,
one final.
yeah, go ahead.
What is I'm seeing a frame behind you, and as you move, I know it spells out moment. I
Oh,
want, yes, live in the moment. Can you share why that was so important to have a centerpiece right there when you're communicating with people? Because and I guess I'll share later why, but I do want your answer on that because
I
I love purposeful placement.
thank you. I bought this many, many years ago, and it's clearly a theme because I also found a ceramic dish that I painted back in the 90s that had "in the moment" on it. For me, it's so important to be present, to be where your feet are. And too many times I've had, and part of it is a reminder for me because I'm always this forward thinker. I'm always thinking about the future and dreaming. And sometimes I have to remember what is right in front of me right now. And I remember somebody that told me they were at the gym and saw a sign above the treadmill that said, "Be here now, be somewhere else later." Is that so complicated? And it's
Mm.
not complicated, but what happens, as I'm sure you and other people listening to this do, is we constantly are thinking about everything that's going on. And sometimes we're not actually present for the conversations that we're in, or we're not present with our own bodies or ourselves. We're constantly looking at distractions and being interrupted by things going on in the world. And so the power of focus, I continue to be reminded, is so critical. And it's also because it's challenging for me, because it's easy for me to get distracted. So having this here reminds me to be in the moment.
I love that. And it reminds me of just making every moment count, which is what we close this show with every single time. It's one of our staples. We have it on t-shirts because every moment matters, whether good or bad. It's teaching us a lesson. It's giving us a feedback. It's telling us where that next moment will come. And I love that you said be present. First of all, that those statements, like whatever they read on at the gym, that's like a convicting moment. That's like, oh my God, that is so me. Like I'm trying to do 50 things at once. And I want to support everyone, right? All at the same time, but we really have to, well, I really have to, I'm gonna speak for myself right now, to really kind of hone in. And I'm a huge nurturer, right? But I want to nurture multiply. So I'm going to take that and just live at the moment, be present with each conversation. That's huge. Thank you so much for bringing your energy, your presence, your synergy exudes you right now. I absolutely love it. And I'm sure that's you every single moment. So I can't wait to connect with you more and other magic we can make. But it has been a pleasure to host you, to get to know you, and to share with the world and what you do, because you're doing amazing things, and we need to get you to 10 million women impacted. So thank you again.
Absolutely, Nikki.
For everything. Thank you again for everything. And go ahead.
It was such a delight to be here with you. Thank you, Nikki. I love your energy too. I'm so glad that we met.
Yes, absolutely. You are welcome, as well as connect with Karen. She has some great things going on. We're going to make sure we put the show notes. You want to download that. You may want to watch this on record. Get your notebooks and your pens ready when you come on the Boom Global podcast and you're listening in, because these amazing entrepreneurs, coaches, human beings that are really finding some of the answers that we're all looking for.
Mm.
I appreciate you all. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. And as I said,